Hey, what is up, all my Nexus family? Welcome back to another episode of the Nexus Podcast with me as your host, Dr. Daniel Kimbley. And this week, I am so excited to share with you a thought that I have been having over the last probably 2 weeks or so. I've been in a very interesting mindset and a place in my life and mentality where I'm looking at my life and what I want and what I don't want. And one of the things that I've really realized is that my entire life, have been raised to look at like this end journey, right? And so what I mean by this, I'll just give you a simple example, is like, I was told, as many of you were probably told as well, that we should want a very certain thing, and then once we have those things, like life is complete, right? So for me, it was when you buy your own house, when you get married, when you have the white picket fence, when you have a car, and you've been to college and you have a degree and all those things, then like you're set. Well, as great as that sounded at the time, I realized that once I got those things, I was probably the unhappiest that I had ever been in my entire life. And there are so many places in my life where this continues to become true and hold true, in the sense that like there's something that you want, that you wanted for so long, and you're longing for it and you're dreading for it and you're working hard to get it, and then finally you like get to a point where you can have the thing, whatever it is that you were told that you want or told that you were supposed to want, and you get it only to realize that like it's just not that exciting. Like it's not that cool. And it is cool, but then that coolness wears off super fast. And the reason I want to share this with you is because I think it's so important in terms of like how we live our lives as human beings. So much of what we experience in our life is probably more on the uncomfortable side, but yet we're taught to avoid that uncomfortability. We're taught to try and seek out comfort. And this isn't like a 75 hard podcast where I'm telling you like you need to grind as hard as you can and push yourself as hard as you can and like never take a break and just keep on working. Like this isn't that kind of podcast, but the reason I started thinking about this is because I realized that every time I've ever set a goal in my life, literally as soon as I hit that goal, I'm like, that was cool, but what's next? That was cool, but what's next? And I started thinking about this idea, and if you're a client inside of our office, then you know we talk about the roadmap to your dreams, right? Which is like your body's in this place of fight or flight. We can help your body get into this place of rest and digest. We can make it happen really, really quickly. Just like Google Maps is going to tell you the fastest way to get to point A from point A to point B. So just like this idea of Google Maps, one of the things that comes up for me specifically is like when I think about the concept of what it means to go from point A to point B, I think what oftentimes, and what I never really started thinking about until these last 2 weeks, is that what is infinitely more important than the point A and the point B, like these are just little blips on the radar. It's that entire journey that's in between to get from one to the other. And what I realize is like, no matter what goal or target I set, it could be office visits, it could be collections, it could be a number in the savings account, it could be a car, it could be a watch, like whatever the thing is that you're seeking, it could be a relationship, it doesn't matter. Whatever the thing is that you're seeking, what I've found and what people I work with have found is like, oftentimes as soon as we get it, it's fleeting. Like that feeling goes away and then we're like, okay, well what's the next thing now? Because that's not cool anymore. If you grew up, and you had any semblance of money at all, I know my friends had trampolines and swimming pools. Like we didn't have that stuff, but I loved going to their houses because I got to jump on the trampoline and enjoy the swimming pool. But for them, they're like, yeah, I don't want to swim in the pool again. Like it's not that cool to me. And the same thing is true with like these journeys in our lives. So what I started thinking about, again, this is me, like I'm giving you some personal, real stuff in my life, in my journey over the last 2 weeks, is like, I've been in this place where I realize that no matter what the number is, no matter what the goal is, no matter what the target is, what I need to enjoy more than hitting those targets, because the feeling of hitting the target is very fleeting, is enjoying the journey. Because the reality is that if point A is here and point B is here, these are just two little blips on the radar. The journey is infinitely more. And no matter how much we grow, no matter how much we strive for, no matter how much we achieve, the journey is always going to be like 10 times, 15 times, 20 times more than those places where we actually hit the milestones in the first place. So why would we not start to enjoy the journey? Because the journey is ultimately what gets us from one place to the other. And this is the reality, is that when people start to realize that it doesn't matter what the target is, and that it's the journey and enjoyment of that journey, of that process, of the frustration, of the trials, of the tribulations, of the triumphs, like those things are the things that create lasting success. Those things are the things that create lasting fulfillment. Those things are the things that keep us up at night excited to move forward into the next day. And what I've realized for me is I've gotten to points in my life, specifically over the course of these last 2 weeks, where I've achieved things that I never thought I would achieve in my life. And yet I still feel this sense of like, I don't want to say frustration, but this sense of challenge of like, why do I not feel more fulfilled? Why do I not feel more excited? Why am I like starting to get tired of and resent the things in my life that I thought mattered so much? And the reality is that the reason that I feel that way is because I haven't enjoyed the journey. I haven't enjoyed my time to wake up every single morning and just put in the work regardless of if nobody's watching, regardless of if I hit a target that day, regardless of the reward that I'm going to get. And I realize that like I'm starting to have more fun and just getting into it and doing the work. And like when I say the work, it's going to be different for everybody, but like getting up before anybody else is awake in my house and working on a book, getting up before anybody else is awake in my house and stacking, getting up before anybody else is awake in my house and working on my mindset and working on my meditation and doing a Bible study. Like these are all things that are part of that journey that aren't the end destinations. Like it's the boring, nitty-gritty, day-to-day, day in, day out, unrelenting grind, if you will. It doesn't have to be a grind, but it can be, of like, those are the things that make someone successful. And I'm not talking about pain and suffering grind where you're burning yourself down into nothing. What I'm talking about is the willingness and the enjoyment and the fulfillment comes from knowing that I did everything that I could possibly do for myself today. And I made myself proud today. Not when I hit the milestone, not when I achieved a certain thing, not when I bought a certain house or bought a certain car, or bought a certain watch or wore certain clothes or whatever it is. It's like, did I make myself proud today? And that's a milestone. And if you can check that box every single day, no matter what, I guarantee you that long term, you will get way further than people who are just driven by a number or by a bank account or whatever it is. Because the journey is what matters. The journey is most of the thing, right? Like, no matter how much we achieve, we're going to be walking way more in our lives or driving way more in our lives than we ever spend at the destination. And so the destination doesn't matter. It's actually all about the journey. Now, this brings up a number of conversations. Is one, like, yes, this could absolutely be a business conversation. But what I want you to think about even more is this idea and this process of healing in your physical body. Because what I know is that most people want a specific outcome. Like, most people want to get a six-pack, but they're not willing to go through a thing of more than 90 days in order to try and get that. And then when they don't get the result in 90 days, they give up and they go back to their old habits. What I have realized in my life is that what I thought would be a 90-day thing is actually probably going to be like a 12-month thing. And it's just the reality of what it takes to get the results that you're actually looking for in life. And if you want to build something that you're proud of, if you want to be proud of yourself, it ultimately comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's commitment to the small things that are going to lead to massive success compounded over time. Chiropractic care is one of these things. Like, I don't think anybody listening to this podcast right now understands how powerful your brain, your nervous system actually is. It literally controls every single thing, every single function, every single cell, every single tissue, every single organ in your entire body. And without a healthy functioning nervous system, like, life is not possible. Life is not possible. If we don't have a nervous system, life is not possible. If our nervous system is not functioning well, then that's going to lead to us not functioning well. And it's regardless of whether you can feel it or not, it's true, because I've worked with enough entrepreneurs, I've worked with enough moms, I've worked with enough dads, I've worked with enough kiddos who are struggling, I've worked with enough people to know that a lower functioning nervous system, you may not notice the results of, or the detriments of, or the consequences of, until you actually have a healthy functioning nervous system. And then people want to take it for granted and they stop the journey. Like, I start to feel good for a moment, so then I quit the journey. And the reality is that the journey matters more than the destination, because we know that we can get to someone to ultimate health. But the reality is that if you're anything like me and the way I was raised, I used to think that because I didn't have any issues, I was healthy. That it could be further from the truth, because we know that one of the first indicators of any kind of breakdown in the body is neurological dysfunction, except for there's only one person and one person only who's measuring neurological dysfunction, and it's a neurologically based chiropractor like myself, like Dr. Taylor. So why do I share this with you? It's because the journey matters. Sticking to the visits, sticking to the plan, sticking to the appointments, ensuring week after week after week after week after week, no matter what, unrelenting that your nervous system is firing at 100%. Because here's what to know is that if your nervous system is not firing at 100%, then you are not firing at 100%. You're not making decisions at 100%. You're not thinking at 100%. You're not having relationships at 100%. You're not performing in the gym and recovering at 100%. You're not digesting your food at 100%. Your meditations aren't getting 100%. Like everything that we've been told in life matters can only be possible through a healthy functioning nervous system. I was having a conversation with someone today where they were talking about meditation, and I said, yeah, but guess what? If your body's stuck in a subcortical stressed out state, no matter how much you meditate, your brain is never gonna fully get you there. Why? Because the frontal cortex of the brain is weakened by stress hormones. Stress hormones are released into your system when joints of the spine are not moving properly. So if we have improperly moving joints of the spine, which by the way, only neurologically based chiropractors can check for, improperly moving joints of the spine creates a subcortical stress response. We drip cortisol into the bloodstream. That cortisol dampens the front part of the brain, the frontal cortex of the brain. The frontal cortex of the brain is responsible for our grit, for our willpower, for our determination, for our curiosity, for our attention to detail, for determining good versus bad, for determining right versus wrong, for our emotional intelligence. It's the part of the brain that's responsible for hope. It's a part of the brain that's responsible for faith. It's a part of your brain that's responsible for optimism. It's a part of the brain that controls your posture. It's a part of your brain that controls your digestion. Like the front part of the brain does so much. Yet, we are still living in this paradigm of like, oh, I'm healthy because I don't have any symptoms. It's the journey that matters. The journey to operating at 100% starts with addressing your brain and nervous system. And my friends, the journey is much, 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 much longer and much more applicable, much more important, and takes up much more time than the destination. And the only way to get to the destination is to enjoy the journey along the way. So I have a question for you. My question for you is simple. It's this, is that where in your life are you not experiencing the fruits of your labor? Maybe you're experiencing them, but you're just not joyful about them. And what can you do? What steps can you take to start to enjoy the journey, not just the destination? Because remember, the journey, point A and point B, like those points are just blips on the map compared to the journey. The journey is long. It takes much longer. The destination is fleeting. The journey is what matters. How can you start to enjoy the journey and everything that you are doing in every single aspect of your life today? My friends, I love you. I appreciate you. If you got some value out of this, do me a couple of things. 1, leave a rating, leave a review. 2, go listen or watch on YouTube. We are just breaking into YouTube, and I would love for you to check out the video if you want to see it in a different way and you want to actually see me speak. That would be amazing. And we will always come at you again next week. Peace.